Welcome to Digital Hospitality. I am your host, Sean Walchef. This is a Cali BBQ Media production. Every single week, we talk about our ongoing thesis, and that is digital hospitality. Every business needs to be digital first, and every business needs to be in the hospitality business. Now, what we try to do is teach people and examples of people that are playing the game within the game. Everyone knows that you need to be digital. Everyone knows that you need to have a social presence. But how do you do that as a business owner? You do that by starting to use your smartphone and starting to share stories that will connect you to your audience, that will help you build community and help you do things that we've never been able to do as small business owners and entrepreneurs. Every single week, we are lucky that because we're so willing to be uncomfortable on so many different platforms, we get to meet so many fascinating people. Podcasting connected me to Jason Jebsen. He is the host of Talking During Movies, a phenomenal podcast, one of my favorite shows that I've been on. I actually had swingers on in the background and had a great conversation with him. But he sent me an email, said, you have to meet Chef Joe Gatto. This guy is absolutely incredible. One of the most impressive guests I've had on. You can't believe the work that he's doing in the food space, in the cooking space, in the cookbook space, in the streaming space. I think he'd be a perfect fit for digital hospitality. And here he is, Chef Joe Gatto. Welcome to the show.
It's awesome. Thank you so much for having me. This is exciting. And Jason told me so much about you as well. So I can't wait to get started because it's just exciting for me on my side as well.
Well, it's super cool because what we do and what our audience knows, people that have listened to this podcast before, is our main purpose is to teach the listener, you, the person listening to this podcast, the person that's watching this on YouTube, the person that we'll connect with on Instagram or TikTok. We want you to become a media company. And there has never been a better time and easier time to become a media company. And you've literally done it. You have done what so many people have wanted to do as a private chef who has launched into the streaming business. Now, the streaming business is such a fascinating business because, as we all know, we live in an internet world. Cord cutters used to be a hot button term. It was something that I've been, I make jokes. I'm a fringe millennial. I graduated high school in the class of 2000, so the internet was supposed to end. But I'm not a millennial. I'm a fringe millennial. But nonetheless, there's a lot of things that I do old school. There's a lot of things that I was late adopting to. But one of the things that took me a long time was to cut the cord. To literally get rid of DirecTV. I've been a DirecTV customer since I was in college. Since 2000, I went to college. I got my first DirecTV account. And I've been a loyal customer, giving them so much of my money, opening up a sports bar, spending $5,000 a year on NFL Sunday Ticket because that was, a part of our plan. But now we have the internet. Now we have TikTok. Now we have YouTube. Now we have Netflix. Now we have Amazon Prime, Apple, over 200 streaming services. But that's opportunity to share your story, to get your content out there. And you've done it. You have a show from scratch, streaming on Pluto TV, something that you have worked so hard to do. How did you do it?
It was hard work.
It wasn't easy.
And nothing comes easy. It's just like TV, just like anything worthwhile. It's super competitive space. Everyone wants to get their show on, and streaming. I love streaming even more than regular TV. For a creator, it's amazing because you really get to tell your story your way. There's no one breathing down your neck. There's no one trying to really control your content. So for us, that was super advantageous as opposed to network television, which, they're going to control your product. There's no two ways about it. They're going to put what they want to put on. They're going to use you as, the masthead, and it's going to be kind of your voice. But with Pluto, we just have developed such a great relationship with them. We shot the show out and we got a distributor right away. They really loved the show. And then, we hooked up with Pluto. And to be honest, at that point, I didn't know that much about streaming. It was, when we started the process with Pluto, it was about 3 years ago when it all started. And I knew I knew streaming Netflix and things like that, but Pluto, Roku, all of that was just coming into not the mainstream quite, but it was definitely a little more prevalent. So I had to really school up on, like VOD, just like how everything.
VOD, video on demand.
Right. Like how the contracts work, how you get paid, how all that actually works. You're streaming for free, money. How do you determine how much money a show makes? It was a whole different thing that I was a filmmaker in my younger life. So I worked at Sony Pictures. I did it. I made music videos. I made a feature film. That's how I met my wife. So I had a background in production, but all that production, that was all, TV and movies. And TV, it's the Wild West now.
It is.
It's a free for all. And all of a sudden for me, because I'm such a visual person and I have that filmmaking background, directing and writing, that from Instagram to TikTok to anything that's, it skews younger, but I'm a visual guy and I know production, and I have a complete TV studio right here. I'm talking to you on it. That's
yes.
I grew up where you had to rent an editing room, we had
yes, correct.
Putting it in, and you had to rent the room for a week. Now it's all here on my phone. So putting content out for me, that's what it's easy for me. So I immediately loved Instagram. I immediately loved TikTok, and then streaming. I was like, okay, so it's the same as TV, but it's free and you get paid from the commercials. Okay, great. Let's make a show. And we shot a pilot.
What year was this? What year did you shoot the pilot?
It was 4 years ago now, when we shot the pilot. It takes forever to get it.
It's good. You could write a book faster. You did write a book faster than you launched your TV show. Your streaming show. I children during this, right? How many?
The thing was, it's like, you've been in this for a while. You got to keep punching.
Yes.
And take the punches, and you have to take the rejection is part of the process. It helps you streamline your product. It helps you understand better. If you're taking the negativity, letting it drag you down, you're dead in the water. If you're taking that negativity and you're taking it and you're using it in a positive way to start saying, okay, well, this person didn't like this. I wonder why. Doesn't mean you have to change it, but you should look at it. And we just kind of streamlined it over that time. And then I got my buds together who are all cinematographers, directors, professionally. That's what they do. And we shot a pilot out. I pitched them this idea. My wife and I had talked about I like making everything from scratch because you need your niche. So, I hand forge my own knives, make my own charcoal. I pull water out of the Atlantic, make salt, milk cows, make butter and cheese. Anything that seemed like you can't do that, I wanted to do it. And I wanted to meet the experts in that field.
Mm-hmm.
So we did one where I was making a BLT, right? It sounds super simple, but I broke down a whole hog, right? Pulled out the belly, cured it, made all my own bacon. Then we made the bread. Then we made sriracha mayo. So we made mayo, we made sriracha, and we just kind of edited, we put it together. I have an editing background as well. So I put together one pass. Then my buddy, Ryan Kavanaugh, who's the director of the series now, he came on and he was like, I love this. We got the pilot together. We met angel investors that had come to take a class with me to learn how to make pasta.
That's amazing.
They asked if I wanted to open a restaurant, and I was like, no.
That's funny.
I would not be good at that.
Well, let's just put it this way. You won't be the first podcast guest that I've had on that's made a successful career in television or streaming that told me they wouldn't open up a restaurant, yet to later open up subsequent restaurants. Because Sam, the cooking guy, when he came onto my podcast in 2017, he said, no chance will I open up a restaurant. And sure enough, he's been on the show about 4 times, and now he has, I believe, 4 different brands. So I'll hold you to it. Stover will bring this back and say, hey, chef, you remember when you said no? That's hilarious.
I just don't think that would definitely not be my strength. Being a private chef and doing that is running a restaurant. I just don't. I know a bunch of my friends have restaurants and they're amazing at it. My buddy Andy Husbands on the smoke shops out here.
Andy Husbands is amazing.
Yeah, Andy's a good friend of mine. He literally lives down the street.
One of the greatest barbecue books ever written.
He's
Yeah,
and like we go and I mean we tailgate at the Pats games together. Sometimes, like, great friend of mine.
that's awesome. Yeah.
And he like I don't even know how he does it. Like it's amazing. Running restaurants is, I think, one of the hardest things in the world. So these guys offer that, and I was like, no, you would not want to see me running a restaurant, and like and I was like, funny thing is though, I did just shoot a pilot to a TV show, and they were like, oh, that's interesting. Can you send that to us? I sent it over to them. They looked at it, and it was like a month later, we were sitting down signing contracts, and they were going to fund a whole season of from scratch.
Amazing.
So I sat down and I bowled through and I wrote a whole season. And then we got our team together. We shot over a summer, one of the best summers ever. We just had a blast. I had my kids with my wife, and we just traveled around New England, met all these amazing just artists, and just everybody that made something really interesting. And we learned, that food is really a combination of art and science. And when you put those two together properly, you get something so unique and powerful. And then we finished the season out. We cut it. We got the distributor. Pluto saw it, and Pluto was like, well, we're taking it. Next thing you know, it blew up on Pluto. We were #1 in the food space, and now we got picked up by Amazon, Roku. Like, we're just starting to get picked up by everyone now.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I still kind of, I'm like, really? Like, like,
yeah,
so long, and it was such a grind, and there were so many but I think having that film background and having worked in LA, I mean, the LA is the king of almost, everyone has their almost stories.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, when you get the call and it's like, oh, we actually signed the contract and we're going on TV, you're like, yeah, when's the other shoe drop?
Yeah.
But it never did. And next thing you know, like, I'm with my family and friends, and people are watching me on TV all across the country, and we go into different countries, and people are writing me in different languages, and they're saying that it's inspiring them and they love it. And it's been kind of a crazy ride. And I'm with Jason, and we're doing crazy stuff down in Austin. Like, it just keeps multiplying. And I love it because I never want to do the same thing day to day. That's why I love being a private chef and cooking something different every day. I love doing events, and I love the travel part of it. I like where everything's constantly changing. It keeps me alive. Like, I really feed on that.
Can you take me back to Hollywood and some of the lessons and stories, if you have any, of things that went wrong, or things that were a sign of things to come that have helped you on your journey now?
I think one of the big things that we took away from working in LA, and especially working on productions, like bigger films and smaller films, didn't even matter the size.
What kind of budgets are we talking about?
I mean, anything from, 10 million down to, $500.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Depending if I'm helping my friend shoot illegally in 12 at night, and the cops are up, and I'm talking them through it. Like, there's a classic, we were shooting this like little mini horror film, and the cops showed up. Guy who was supposed to get permits for us, he said he did, but he didn't. So when the cops showed up and they're like, where are your permits? We didn't have any. And my wife says, and it's classic Joe, all of a sudden off to the side talking to the policeman, and next thing you know, they're in the movie and everything's okay.
Beautiful. I like how you roll. Yes.
The biggest thing that taught me is production it's not about like these great shots or this performance. If you're on the production side, it's putting out fire. It's constantly thinking on your feet. It's constantly solving problems, because if you don't solve them, everything stops. And if everything stops, it costs money, a lot of money. So for me, from doing when I was like 18, it just kind of taught me that you never stop. You're always improvising. You always have to be malleable. That a problem is just an opportunity for a solution. And I know that sounds kind of like back of the napkin or like cliche, t-shirt, but it's really true, because I mean, my life is balls to the wall, man. I go all out and I do a lot, and I like it that way. And if I didn't have that production background where you see just dumpster fires and you're like, all right, if I don't solve that, you can't pass the buck. And I think for me, that helped me find my way as an entrepreneur. And that kind of is my mantra. And that's definitely what I'm known for. We get hired to do a lot of big events, and there's just me and my sous chef, and we're cooking for 300 people, and I'm making everything from scratch. I'm making, 600 tortillas, and I'm spending just hours doing everything. And people are like, come on, man, that's crazy. I don't know. Is it? Because it's what I love to do. I love clapping on the radio and banging out. Like, what the hell else would I be doing? Like, I like when I get tight and people are eating like my barbacoa and everything has been made by my hands or my sous, and they're freaking out, and there's 100 people in line, they're all eating. That to me that's the joy. And when you're making 600 tortillas, you know how to, when it's by bulk, it's no joke, because you don't want the quality to dip down because you're making more. So how do you find that balance? Do you give up? Do you buy store-bought?
Yeah.
Hey.
It's problem solving. One of the things that fascinates us that we talk about to entrepreneurs and business owners all the time is that aha moment, that oh shit moment for you when you decided to actually take this entrepreneurial leap from the film production world that you were living, which isn't an easy world to live in. I'm sure it's not a stable income by any means. Living the creative world. I mean, that's almost as entrepreneurial as you get on that end. But deciding to come into the food space, what was the decision like? Walk me through the process.
It was interesting because we were working on a couple different screenplays at the time. My wife and I were writing. I was working, Sonia, she was working for an agency. And, we were finding success, not like, we have a G5 success, but like, we bought a place and we were enjoying it. But the thing about LA, the thing about film that I found was, I mean, in all honesty, like in the film space, more people want you to fail than succeed. And they try to fuck you over. Like they don't think there's enough space. If you have a movie and they have a movie, they don't think there's enough space for two. I'm a different cat. I always think there's space. Yeah. I'd rather work. I'd rather help someone come up and prop them up and like do things together. I get it. I love that. Like that gives me a buzz.
Yeah.
The food space, all I found from like Andy and everyone wants to help you.
Correct.
Right? They want to share with you.
Hospitality.
They want food with you, time with you, recipes, love, right? The heart of the house. That attracted me so much, especially after being in this other space. But I'm a creative, I'm an artist. That's what I am. So my wife got pregnant with Benjamin, my first son, turns 12 tomorrow, taking him to
awesome
night in the Celtic game.
Amazing.
And so my wife and I sat down and she said, do you want to raise Benjamin in LA? And I was like, I don't want him to grow up to be a douchebag. So no,
No, I don't.
I don't. And I was like, in all honesty, I really want to change my career path to food. And I had been teaching out of my house. I taught a couple of my friends and I made chicken piccata. And people were like, how did you make this so good? And I was like, well, why don't you come over Saturday? You guys bring the ingredients. I'll teach you how to make it. Next thing I know, like a couple months later, I had about 15 people at my house on Saturdays and Sundays, and everyone started paying me to do it. And I was like, wow, I really like this.
Yeah.
You know, and I had been cooking my entire life and really playing with it for so long, like from scratch angle, not as deep as I do it now, but you know, I'd really played with that for a long time. So I told my wife, you know, I really want to change into food. I want to transition. So we decided to move back to Boston. I started teaching here for this company a couple towns over, and in the
what were you teaching?
All different, like how to make pasta, how to make like just, you know, French dishes, everything I taught myself, I was teaching, you know, other people in a class situation. And I liked it. I liked being in front of people. Like at that point, I thought that was it. I was like, this is my career. I love it. And then a woman came and took a class with me. And at the end of class, she said, you know, you have such an amazing knowledge base. She said, I own a private chef company. I'd be curious if you'd want to come and kind of like try out for me and take on some clients. She's like, I think you'd be really good at it. And I was like, private chef, Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and my wife was like, yes, you should do. Okay, so now I'm doing it. And I went, and she gave me the job right after I did it. And I think it was like a year later, I bought the company from her, and I rebranded it where it was like A-listers. And then like I started getting all these high-end clients. I got a Red Sox player, and then a Boston Celtics player. And then all of a sudden I met Andy, and then I'm hosting these huge events in Boston, and I'm starting to do like little film projects at the same time for food. And I have this natural gift to like shoot things because of the filmmaking background. And that's when it was like, oh, wait a second. I can take the food part, the scratch part, the filming part, the love being in front of an audience part.
Yep.
And I'll have my own little niche. And that's next thing you know, then it's show, book. And the book I got through, Andy recommended me to the publisher, and they called me.
Amazing.
That's just my huge dog.
That's cool. We like dogs.
Yeah, German Shepherd.
Dogs make appearances on the podcast often. That's totally cool.
My daughter will. Oh, there's my son.
There you go. Happy birthday, Benjamin.
Birthday on
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, actually, funny little side story. I met food influencers in Boston at a dinner that I had been asked to do to taste this product. And we decided we'd do a food class for these influencers to kind of teach them the inside of making something. So, you know, because they're always out tasting food. So I bring Benjamin to everything, chef coats up. You know, he knows how to do most everything.
I love it.
And next thing you know, there's this great video on my Instagram. Benjamin's in front of 20 food influencers, biggest in Boston. And he's teaching them all pasta and how the gluten works and everything. And they're all just filming him like, how is this kid knows so much about food, but he loves it too. And that's, I guess, Sean, like, honestly, that's been the biggest gift out of all of this, is that I get to share it with them, and I get to spend them, and they grow up intertwined in my business, as opposed to I go to work and then I come home, and they don't do, like, it's all part of it. Like when we just saw Jason and went to Austin, you know, for a private client, that was an amazing trip, but they took us all out there. Yeah. You know, I'm making this big experience dinner, and I'm making tortillas to do these chicken tacos. And I'm like, just kept getting a little behind. And my daughter, who's turning 9, and my son, are in the kitchen, and I'm like, you guys start making tortillas. So they're at the stove and they're flipping the tortillas on the pans with their fingers, and everyone's just like, wait a second, what?
Yes.
And it was awesome. Like
It is awesome. But that's what family is.
I mean, that's how I grew up, always in
Yeah.
the kitchen doing stuff, and it creates that bond that I love. And it really all started with, like you were saying, that aha moment where I had to decide. I was never good working for anyone else. I'm not good at it.
Yeah.
I just there's some people that can do it. There's some people that can't. I definitely, the couple times I've worked for people, it's just, I can't be a company guy. It's just not.
Well, I think one of the most important things is that, anybody that's listening to this podcast, that you understand that every single day you're waking up to live to your potential. And when you're not living to your potential, what are you doing? Life is just way too short. And, the fact that you get to experience all these incredible things with your family is, it's what resonates with our audience. I know our audience very well. I'm very fortunate. Anybody that's new to listening to this podcast, we talk about family all the time. My son is 4 years old, my daughter's 2. And, my wife, she's the leader of our wolf pack, and she's the one that keeps all the glue together. But as we start to go out and do events for Yelp and for Entrepreneur Magazine and launching our next podcast, Restaurant Influencers, and we're going to be able to go to, different trade shows, they're going to come with us. Because if they don't come with me, then it's just not going to happen. It's not going to be fun for me. I'm not going to want to do it. And the older that they get, when my son's 12 and my daughter's, I'll want them to be holding the iPhone, holding the iPhone, or them, even better, them teaching. Them teaching, them doing, because those are the things that we're going to remember, further on down the line.
That's what, I don't know how to agree with that more. That's exactly what, that's exactly what I grew up doing, but now, like, passing that baton on and watching my kids comfortable in the kitchen and, like, making things together and sharing that time, I do take a breath and take it in. I do, because I'm a big believer in that you have to pay attention to the journey.
Yeah.
Everyone's got goals. You have to have goals. You have to understand what you're actually trying to achieve. But if you don't enjoy this part too, you're missing it. You're missing the whole part, because the learning part, the sharing part, that's become, that's everything to me with them. They're out there doing all these events with me. Like, his birthday comes on tomorrow I have an event. And so we asked, what do you want to do for your birthday? And he said, I want to go to the steak event with Dad and help. And I was like,
that's amazing.
I'm like, of course. I'm like, yeah, of course. But inside I'm like, oh, God, like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Greatest thing ever, because I don't know how long he'll want to do that. Like, maybe he'll want to do it forever. Maybe he won't. I don't know.
Correct.
But I'm going to take every damn minute I can, with them, and watch my daughter pulling fresh mozzarella on stage with me.
That's awesome.
And watching the audience just laugh, and then watching, like, Instagram and watching all these social platforms grow, not by sharing a shtick, by sharing what I do, just sharing who I am. Like, that's one thing that was very intentional on my part, is you share everything.
Yes.
If something in an event, it's funny. It's going to be funny to everybody, right?
Yeah.
Like just share the journey and the cool things that are happening, and let people follow along. And that's how I try to approach all of the platforms, is just have fun with it. Don't try to structure it too much. It's like trying to structure, right? It's what like you have to be loose, because things change. Life, if you try to tell life what to do, it's gonna laugh in the face repeatedly.
Correct.
You gotta save.
I love that. We had a guest on the podcast, Ryan Redondo, who's the CEO of a tennis center over here in San Diego, and he was talking on the podcast about a difficult time in his life where he was one of the top tennis players in the nation collegiately, and he was always trying to figure out that next thing, how am I going to get to the pro tour? And he started feeling very depressed, and his coach saw that in him. And he said, Ryan, what's your problem? He's like, I keep thinking about this. I keep thinking about this. Like, I want to achieve, like, I have goals for myself. My family have goals for me. And his coach said, Ryan, why don't you just blossom where you're planted? And I mean, it hit me when he said it on the podcast. I've repeated it multiple times. I talk about it. I mean, it's just blossom where you're planted. We are always looking forward, but why can't we blossom and appreciate where we are right now? And like, that's such a powerful thing. And it reminded me of what you were talking about. It's appreciate the fact that right now your son is choosing to say, Dad, I want to do this on my birthday. I want to be with you on my birthday.
Yeah. I mean,
it's not worrying about where he's going to get into college or what he's going to, like, it's what's happening today. Like, let's just blossom where we're planted.
That's, I mean, I love that. I mean, that's like a mantra. That's like a t-shirt for me. I mean, that's amazing, because that's definitely what I believe in. Because part of it, like for me, a lot of my business is to incorporate them and be with them. And when I go somewhere, they come, like you were saying, they come with me. I just think it's, I mean, why would I want it any other way? If I go by myself somewhere, I mean, I'm just going to call them and be like, what, me?
Yeah.
And to have them there and watch them, especially when we were just in Austin at Jason's house, and watching them just kick ass, thinking about it, and then watching all the guests who were talking to me, right? They're like, oh, look at this chef. He's got a TV show. Like, oh, he's really friendly. And then everyone's like, get out of the way, chef. Like, look at those kids. And I'm like, yeah I'm going to retire soon. Like,
correct. I mean, that is the coolest thing. And one thing we do want people to take away from this episode and from the podcast is technology has broken down this wall of what it used to take to get a story done. I mean, you were in Hollywood, how hard it was to get a movie made, to get a TV show on. But now with streaming, now with TikTok, now with YouTube, literally we can get to a place where we can share all of who we are, not just the commercialized side of what we want our Instagram feed to look like, but we share the personal side, we share the professional side, we share the failures. The more that we share the failures and the mistakes and the journey along the way, the more that we connect with people. And that's true on all these platforms. I mean, so many times people say, why do you post personal things on your business page? I'm like, I only have one life. There's no personal life and business life. It's one life for Sean. You get you get the Chargers. I'm a Charger fan. I'm a diehard Charger fan, unapologetic Charger fan. Guess what? My kids go to the Chargers games. My little daughter, she's 2. She can barely say any words, but she can say, let's go Chargers. Like, she sees football on TV and it reminds her of the time that I took her to the game. Like, for me, that's who I am. And that's who I'm going to share.
And see, that's what I love about it, especially that you're raising them Chargers fan, because then they're failure.
That we are very good with failure. We're very good with saying no. We're very good with getting our heart ripped out of our chest. Yes, absolutely.
As Patriots fans up here in Massachusetts, I have to teach my kids, like, not to be spoiled brats. I'm like, look,
yes, correct. You don't get to win a championship every season. It's not how it works.
I was like, Tom Brady's gone. It's going to hurt for a while. And now all of a sudden it's like, right, Belichick.
Yeah. Oh, right. We're right back up on top. Yeah.
It's and I mean, we just played you guys just recently, and the Chargers I'm a big Chargers fan as well, just because I for so long I was on the West Coast for, I don't know, 15 16 years. So you just get the media there of the Niners, the Chargers. You just get, and all of a sudden they just kind of become your adopted team. So West Coast is a big thing, except for the Lakers. I still hate the Lakers.
Oh, you're a Celtics fan. You can't like the Lakers. That's sacrilege.
Right. It's like the Bruins fan in me will never like the Canadians. Like, respect.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we are absolutely impressed with everything that you're doing. It's at FromScratch.tv, at Chef Joe Gatto, on Instagram, on all the social, Stover. He does a phenomenal job. Ian's going to write up an article. You guys can visit the Cali barbecue.media page. We're going to publish the episode on YouTube. Hopefully we can get Chef Joe on our Clubhouse every Friday at 10 a.m. We do a Clubhouse. So whatever week this podcast drops, hopefully that Friday we can have Chef Joe on Clubhouse. Are you on Clubhouse?
But this is
Clubhouse it's an audio app.
Oh, come on. Yeah, I want to play.
Yes. So we're gonna have Chef Joe on Clubhouse. That way you guys can ask questions. Hopefully you guys we've gotten a lot of listeners that are on Clubhouse and are joining these Friday calls, which is super cool. It's 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And yeah, we love Clubhouse. It's an incredible app. A lot of our podcast guests we've found on Clubhouse. We've gotten to meet some very significant people, people playing the game within the game. Always new adopters to technology seem to gravitate to certain spaces. And that's why podcasting is how I met Jason. It's how I met Chef Joe here. And, you know, it's one of those things one of my favorite quotes is from the great philosopher Winnie the Pooh. We will be friends forever. Just you wait and see. So Chef Joe, we will be friends forever. Just you wait and see. You've got another friend on the West Coast in San Diego. If you're ever here with the kids, we hope to see them at Cali Barbecue. And we can't wait for your next season. So what's the deal? Can you give us some breaking news of where you are after you've launched one season? How do you get to season 2?
Now that we have numbers, you know, people are starting to fire. So just like everything else, get ahead of the curve. You know, I'd never written season 2, so I did a rough outline and decided that would go across the country and do everything from scratch. So I want to make olive oil. I go to, you know, there's one episode all on candy. So I want to get beeswax because there's a way to turn beeswax into chewing gum. So I want to go like, you know, like all this crazy stuff and really just kind of dig in to more from scratch and really just see, like, olive oil production is just something I don't know a lot about, but I want to. And I want to know just all that history of it and just how it works. So yeah, we're going to start digging in now and start putting together season 2. And, you know, I'd love for it to drop on Pluto and other ones. But right now, the whole idea is to get an interesting season written. And the first stop in that is just pre-production and just coming up with, I want season 2 to be like, you remember Alien and Aliens? I want it to be Alien. I don't want it to, like, you know, that sequel, like Halloween 2, you know, that was like, you know, like.
Yes. It is a high bar that you have to set for yourself. Well,
yeah.
Please let Andy Husbands know that he has huge fans out here on the West Coast. Huge fans of his work. Incredible. Hopefully we could get him on the podcast sometime. But Chef Joe, you're amazing, man. We're grateful. I know that we're doing the right things if I'm meeting people like you and being able to share your story with all of our listeners. So thank you for what you're doing, and hope you and your son and your family have an awesome holiday season.
Thanks. Same out to you, brother. Have a great holiday, and thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
Absolutely. And anybody listening, we're grateful to have you here. If you need anything, you can reach out to me on any of the social platforms at Sean P. Walchef. And we are grateful. Stay curious, get involved, and don't be afraid to ask for help.